Hello, my friend. Welcome to your sleep story. My name is Stephen Dalton. I'm an Irish storyteller, and it's my great privilege to be the voice that you listen to as you go to sleep tonight. You know, I have recently been enjoying writing stories about animals. There was Saul the sloth and the lonely donkey. And when I released the donkey video, I saw that someone suggested in the comments that I release a story about a bear going into hibernation. And so, that's what I present to you tonight. A story of a bear going into a long, long sleep. I really hope you like it. One small thing, if you'd like to support my work, you can do so on Patreon. The link is below this video. Okay, let's do the relaxation session now, which will take a few minutes before tonight's story. I'm going to count down from 10 to 1, and as I do, allow yourself to let go more and more. 10. Feel the support of the bed beneath you, or the floor, or whatever you lie upon tonight. And beneath that, feel the support of our planet, Earth, holding you, supporting you, keeping you safe. And with that awareness of that support, see if you can let go a little bit more now. Loosen any tension a little bit more now. Nine. You are safe. Allow my voice to be an anchor of safety tonight. To be a friend. To be a voice of trust. Trust in the fact that I will only ever bring you to safe places. Feel into your body now. Feel where you still might be holding. Maybe it's in your feet. Maybe in your lower legs. Maybe in your belly. Perhaps in your chest, your hands even, or your face. I know I hold in my face. Just soften now. Just let go more and more now. Seven. The day is done. Whatever has been has been. Whatever will be, will be. Whatever thoughts you might be having about tomorrow, about today, about anything, they are not so useful now. They do not serve you, but do not fight them. See them for what they are. Just thoughts, coming and going, part of being a human. And gently let them go now. See them floating away like clouds passing in a starlit sky, or leaves floating down a moonlit river. 6. This is your moment. This is your time. You have nowhere to go right now. Nowhere to be. Allow that fact to enable you to sink deeper and deeper into this moment. Allow that fact to bring about more softening, more peace in this moment. 5. Perhaps allow a little gratitude now. Gratitude for the shelter you have tonight, for the opportunity of rest, for the simple things, your breath, your body, and those you love. 4. Peace lives within you. It is always there, just waiting to be found, waiting to be seen, waiting to be felt. See if you can find that peace tonight. See if you can feel it. 3. Begin to engage with your imagination now. Begin to see a beautiful forest on a late autumn day, and begin to see, if you will, a kindly looking bear walking through his native home, getting ready for winter. 2. Checking in with your body one more time now. Your body has worked hard for you today. It's time to give it rest. 1. Completely letting go now. as I tell you tonight's sleep story. The first frost had come early this year, creeping over the forest floor like a pale veil before the sun could burn it away. The bear, alone now for many days, woke with a sense of restlessness, a heaviness that seemed to sit deeper than his fur and skin, reaching into the core of him. His coat, thick and bristling, was nearly ready for the long winter, but something inside him wasn't. Not yet. He rose from the hollow beneath the tree where he had been sleeping, the branches above him bare, shaking in the morning breeze. The world felt brittle in these early hours of the day. Everything quiet, as if the forest itself was waiting for something. The bear stretched his powerful limbs, shaking off the cold that clung to him, and began to walk. There was a pull, something guiding him, though he wasn't sure where it led. The instinct to prepare, to fatten himself, to find shelter for the long months ahead was strong. But there was another feeling too, something he hadn't felt in years. It was a lingering memory of what the world had been before the silence of winter. A world full of movement and life. The bear's paws crunched over fallen leaves, some still vibrant in color, others already dull, decaying into the earth. He moved with purpose, but slower than he once had. The seasons had come and gone many times for him. Each winter harder than the last. He followed the river for a while, the water flowing slower than it had a month ago, the edges starting to freeze. He fished here not long ago, but now the river was almost silent, save for the trickle of water that still pushed its way toward the mountains. The fish were gone, moved on to deeper waters, where they too would wait for the cold to pass. There wasn't much left for him here now. As the day passed, the bear felt his hunger gnawing at him. But it wasn't hunger for food. He needed something else. Something he couldn't name. He lumbered through the forest, his massive body shifting easily through the dense thickets, the pine needles catching on his fur as he moved uphill towards the cave he had used in winters past. The cave waited for him, dark and silent, as it always did. It was a safe place, a place to sleep away the months of snow and ice. But this year, standing at the entrance, the bear hesitated. He looked out over the forest, at the fading light of the autumn sun, casting long shadows over the hills. And for the first time, the idea of disappearing for the winter didn't feel like the answer. There was something more. The bear's journey had never been about just survival. He had always known this, somewhere deep inside. It was about being part of something bigger. The cycles of the forest, the rhythms of the seasons. But now, as he stood there, he wondered if that rhythm had changed. He had changed. The winters had been long, yes, but the years themselves felt longer now. And maybe what he needed wasn't just another long sleep. He turned away from the cave. The bear wasn't ready for his sleep. Not yet. There was still something out there for him. Something he had to find before the world turned white. He didn't know what it was, or how far he would have to go. But as the cold wind brushed through the trees, he knew that he couldn't stop now. He had to keep moving. And so, with the first stars beginning to prick through the fading twilight, the bear set off again, deeper into the forest, searching for what he hadn't known he was missing. The bear moved through the twilight, his breath steady in the cooling air. Each step taking him further from the familiar path toward the unknown. The stars above glinted faintly through the thinning branches, but their light wasn't enough to guide him. It wasn't light he needed anyway. He was following something else, something quieter, more elusive. He didn't know how far it would take him, but the pull inside him felt undeniable. As he walked, the forest thickened. The trees, older here, pressed closer together, their bark rough with age. He could feel their presence, their roots deep in the earth, steady and unchanging. But the bear wasn't steady. He could feel the shift in himself. Bears like him weren't meant to question things. They were meant to follow the rhythm of the seasons, to let the world decide when it was time to sleep and when it was time to wake. But this year, the world's rhythm felt different. Or maybe it was him who changed. He came to a clearing, a place he hadn't seen before. Though he had wandered this forest for years. The moon had risen by now, and in the middle of this clearing stood a single tree, surrounded by grass. The tree's branches were wide and low and heavy with age. The bear approached slowly, his paws sinking into the soft earth, as if the ground itself were inviting him to rest. But he didn't stop. Not yet. He circled the tree once, then twice, unsure of what had drawn him here. There was something about this place, though. It was old, older than him, older than anything he had known. He could feel it in the air, a stillness, a patience, as though the tree had seen countless winters come and go. And still it stood. The bear sat back on his haunches, his gaze fixed on the tree's twisted branches, wondering what it had witnessed, what it could tell him if it could speak. And as he sat there, the restlessness that had been gnawing at him began to settle just a little. The world outside the clearing was still moving, still preparing for the long winter. But here, in this quiet, the bear felt something else, something closer to peace. It wasn't the kind of peace that comes from finding answers, but the kind that comes from knowing it's all right not to have them. The kind that comes from accepting the unknown. The bear breathed deeply, his eyes growing heavy. He hadn't realized how tired he was until now. He had been searching, moving, pushing himself through the days, as though he were trying to outrun the inevitable. But here, in this clearing, he could feel the truth. Winter would come, just as it always had, and he would sleep, just as he always had. But maybe this time, when he woke, something would be different. Maybe this time, he wouldn't just be surviving. He'd be living. The bear now moved quietly through the undergrowth, his paws making little sound as he returned to the deeper woods. The clearing was behind him now, but its stillness remained in his mind, like a slow burning ember. The night had fully fallen, and the forest had taken on an almost magical, secretive life. There was a different energy here now, a softness, a calmness, as though the world had settled in for the long dark stretch ahead. But the bear wasn't ready to settle. Not yet. The cold wind moved through the trees, pulling him further from the familiar paths he had known all his life. He wandered now, less purposefully, but no less drawn forward. He wasn't going back to the cave tonight, not with the moon shining as it was, and the scent of the forest so rich in his nostrils. There was still something out there, something he needed to find before the winter came and sealed the world in ice. He passed an old, fallen tree, its trunk moss-covered and decayed. The bear paused there, nudging the damp wood with his nose, inhaling the deep, earthy scent. He could smell the creatures that had made their home within the hollowed bark. Small things, small creatures, hidden from the world above. It reminded him, in a way, of the life he would soon lead, tucked away from the cold, unseen by the world. Now he moved on, and as he wandered deeper into the forest, the trees grew taller. The air was colder here, sharper, and the ground was firmer beneath his paws, and the sounds of the forest were muted, almost swallowed by the towering presence of the pines. He slowed his pace now, his movements more cautious, as if he were a guest in a land that didn't belong to him. The moonlight barely reached through the thick branches above, leaving only the faintest glow to guide him. But the bear's eyes were sharp in the dark, and his nose was even sharper. He followed a scent carried on the wind, something familiar yet different. It wasn't the scent of food or danger. It was something else, something that stirred in him a memory he couldn't quite place. The scent led him to a small stream, barely more than a trickle of water threading its way through the rocks. He stopped there, watching the moonlight shimmer faintly on the surface. The water was clear, its gentle sound the only noise in the stillness of the night. The bear bent his head to drink. The cold water shocking against his tongue. And when he had had his fill, he sat back on his haunches, his breath visible in the cold night air. The stream gurgled beside him, endlessly moving, even as the rest of the forest seemed to slow in preparation for the winter ahead. There was something about that movement, about the way the stream continued on its path, that gave the bear pause. He had always thought of the winter as an end, as a time when everything stopped, when the world became quiet and still. But now, sitting beside the stream, he wondered if that was truly the case. The water didn't stop when the frost came. It didn't pause or sleep through the winter months. It just moved quietly beneath the ice and snow, continuing on its journey. Perhaps, the bear thought, that was how it was meant to be. Perhaps winter wasn't about ending, but about continuing in a different way. He sat there for a long time, watching the water, feeling the cold sink into his fur, into his skin. The night pressed in around him, but it didn't feel oppressive. It felt necessary. The bear didn't know what lay ahead for him in the coming months, but for the first time, he wasn't afraid of the long sleep. He understood now that it wasn't the end. It was just part of the journey. He rose to his feet, the stream at his back, and began to walk again. He had found something on this night, something that told him that sleep was the right thing to happen now. And as the night grew colder, the bear moved deeper into the forest. His steps slowed. The restless energy that had driven him earlier was fading, replaced by a quiet understanding, a calm that settled into his bones The moonlight flickered through the trees, and in the distance, the bear heard something soft, almost imperceptible at first. It wasn't the rush of the stream or the rustle of leaves. It was a deeper sound, low and steady, like a heartbeat beneath the earth. The bear paused, lifting his head to listen more closely. The sound seemed to hum through the air, as though the forest itself were calling him home. He followed it, his movements instinctive now, drawn toward the source of the sound. His paws padded silently over the fallen leaves, his breath slow and even. The world around him felt different, quieter, like the very act of walking had shifted something inside him. He wasn't searching anymore. He was following, guided by something older than memory, older than instinct. As the bear walked, the sound grew clearer, a deep, rhythmic pulse that seemed to resonate within him. It was coming from the earth itself, from beneath the roots of the forest, and it led him to a familiar place, the cave, the place he had turned away from earlier, the place he had thought he wasn't ready for. But for now, standing at its entrance, the bear felt differently. He was home. He stepped inside, his body casting a dark silhouette against the pale light of the moon. The walls of the cave were smooth, worn down by time, and the air smelled of earth and stone. It was a smell that spoke of safety, of quiet, of peace. The bear moved deeper and deeper into the cave, his eyes adjusting to the darkness. And the deeper he went, the warmer he got. and he found a spot near the back where the ground was soft with layers of dry leaves and moss. This was where he would sleep. This was where he belonged. The bear began to move slowly now, with deliberate motions. He pushed the leaves into a pile, circling the spot a few times, testing the ground beneath him. It felt right, warm, comfortable, and he lay down, stretching his large body over the bed of leaves, and felt the cool air settle over him like a blanket. His muscles relaxed. The tension he hadn't realized he'd been holding, finally releasing. The quiet filled the cave, and for the first time in days, the bear felt fully at rest. The bear had found something that made sense. The journey had brought him back to this moment, to this place, and in the stillness of the cave, he understood what he had been searching for all along. It wasn't something outside of him, something beyond the forest or the seasons. It was peace. The peace that came from knowing he had done everything he needed to do, that he had prepared, that the forest had provided for him, just as it always had. He had found the berries and the fish, and had wandered through the trees and felt the bite of winter's approach, and now it was time to let go. The bear's breaths grew slower, deeper, as the darkness of sleep began to pull him under. He closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of his own body, the rhythm of his heartbeat slowing in time with the earth. Outside, the forest continued its quiet hum, but inside the cave, all was still, all was calm. He had found what he was looking for. There was no more searching, no more wondering. He was ready now to sleep for many weeks, ready to let the winter take him, to drift into the long sleep, trusting that when he woke, the world would be waiting for him. The bear's breaths came softer and softer until they were barely a whisper in the night. And then, finally, he slept.